So, in today's episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles, and this is episode 247, we are going to continue on the journey that we started last week, which is to study the lesson 133. I will not value what is valueless. And listen, friends, we are at a time when everything is in the process of shifting. And the shift is a beautiful thing if you're aware of it, but it is definitely going to be a very scary thing to those who are completely unconscious to what is happening here in the world. So something that we have to understand is that we have made a choice to be here, to have this experience as separate from God. The Course tells us inside of God's mind, where everything is created, and we have to be inside of God, otherwise God would not be infinite. If God, if God were not infinite, God would be finite and we would be outside of God. So we cannot possibly be outside of God. Utilizing logic is key to discerning what is going on. So if God is infinite, we have to be within it. If we are within God, and what God is I'll call it a substance, consciousness. You call it energy, doesn't matter what you call it. It is what is non-physical. If God is non-physical, so are we. We must be non-physical like God is. We are created in its likeness. So when we begin to apply logic that we are inside of God, that's how we know we're safe, because we're within God. And the reason we exist is because God wanted us to be in existence. God imagined us. So inside of God's imagination, we exist within its mind. Within its mind, we have a thought. And we think because God thinks. God thought us into existence. The Course is really clear. We are exactly like God, exactly made in its image, except for one thing. There's only one difference between us and God, and that is that God imagined us. We cannot imagine God. We are a creation of the Creator. So once we accept that order, creator and creation, like there's mother and child, the child did not make the mother makes the child. Once we accept that order, things begin to become easier to understand. Just accept that you were created, and you were created because you were wanted. You were loved into existence. God has imagined everything that is possible within the mind that is infinitely creative. There is no end to what God can create. When you get comfortable with God's infinite imagination, then everything that is brought about, whether we're talking about the different species of flowers or of birds or of even humans, the different varieties of humans on this planet, then of course it makes sense to open up to the different variety of beings beyond this planet. So opening up to the possibility of infinity becomes a lot easier when you put things in the proper order. Creator, created. If creator can create infinitely, then everything that is created can be infinite. So we've got to open up our minds, break down the barriers of the way things should be. We are all conditioned once we make the decision to feel that we're separate from God. And here's the crazy thing. We cannot not be separate from God. It's not possible to be separate from God. You cannot be separate. It's inconceivable. Again, go back to logic. God is the creator. You're inside of the creation. So you're not separate from God. You're within God always and forevermore, which is why God goes with us wherever we go. And when you accept that, you are not alone. You are accompanied always by God because you are within God. So wherever you go, there God is. No different than a mother who is pregnant. That you could say that the 6-month fetus or the 8-month fetus or the 9-month embryo, the baby, whatever you want to call it, that is in there, it's always accompanied by its mother. even if it's experiencing itself separate. It's beginning to feel its hands and move about. It's having its own individual experience within the Creator, just as we are. We are within God. Accepting the order of creation allows us to relax, to truly relax. If you trust that that is true, that's all the work that we're doing here. The mind that decided that it is separate from God is the very mind. It's the thinking. It's the thoughts that we hold that create all of our suffering. Because when you believe that you're separate from God, whatever you believe creates your reality. And that is a concept that for so many of us, it takes time to understand. That's why the Course in Miracles, this nice big fat book, is all about training our mind to think correctly, to put things in the correct logical order. There is the Creator, and then you are within the Creator as part of the creation, along with everything. Everything. Just because you can't think of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So we have to open up to that there has to be more. This is a quintessential aspect of the mind of a child that is in a state of wonder, in a state of perpetual curiosity. I don't know what more there is, but I am ready to experience it because I am here on a magical adventure. When we listen to the voice of the ego that thinks that we are separate from God, that thinks that God's over there and we're over here, of course, from that first mistaken idea of separation, well, we create all kinds of suffering for ourselves. If you think you're separate, you believe you're alone. You got to figure things out. And then you see all of these other people on the planet and you think you got to figure out with them. And you pick one person to be your partner. And you know, it's you against the world, and you're working hard to make things happen, and you know, there's limitation in that. All of that comes from the belief in separation. I'm separate from God. This is what the Course wants us to understand, is where we have to make the correction. And that means that when we relax into the truth that I am within God, I cannot be separate, things begin to feel so different, because now you allow yourself to cultivate a relationship with God. You begin to recognize that what created you not only loves you, but it is with you always and forevermore. And who needs better protection than God itself, the creator of all that is, the only one that can destroy anything that it doesn't want. And the only way that anything is destroyed is God ceases to think of it. And God doesn't cease to think because God is perpetually creating. The Course wants us to cultivate a direct relationship with God, which is to undo, to reverse what the world has taught us. See, when we think that we're separate from God and God is over here, like we've been taught on a cloud somewhere, and we are separate from God, we're down here, and God is up there somehow, and we buy into that story, we begin to believe that God is what we are being taught about God. I grew up Catholic, so I was taught that God was according to Jesus, a loving God, according to the rest of the Bible, a wrathful God, a God that demanded sacrifice, that demanded, you know, the death of the firstborn child, that demanded all kinds of things, the sacrifice of virgins. I mean, and I am not a scholar of the Bible, so I will start there. But what little I have read, yes, there are some beautiful, inspiring things, but then there are some things in there that absolutely do not match with what Jesus was teaching about God. This loving God that I could be one with is not the same God that is taught about in most of the rest of the Bible. So when I began my journey to awaken, I pretty much started off with a deep dive. I went down the rabbit hole in how was the Catholic Church, how was the Christian religion created? What was the origin of that? The course, even before I studied the course later on taught me that every thought system has an origin. The thought system of God, which is not thinking, is knowing, has an origin. And it's an origin that we cannot understand because it's an origin that has always existed. So it has been there forever. But human thinking has a beginning. The thinking of the Christian church has a beginning, and it pretty much started around the year 325 after AD with the Emperor Constantine, who called forth a council in the city of Nicaea. So it's known as the Council of Nicaea, called all of these bishops and told the bishops, let's create a universal church. That's what Catholic means, universal. Create a universal religion that would follow what the emperor wanted people to believe. That's why we were given so many different stories about Jesus, not all that were actually about him, that knew him, that were with him. So gospels were put into this book that were selected. They were selected because they had a very specific message, which was designed to confuse the reader, confuse people who were going to be born after that, the start of that religion, into believing that we are sinners, we are dirty, we're born dirty. Poor Jesus was sent here to die for our sins, to create this level of guilt within us, and then to live with the fear of the wrath of the Father. None of that matches what Jesus actually talked about. He talked about loving your neighbor, loving everybody, loving the prostitute, loving the tax collector, loving everybody. But at the same time, inside of Jesus' teaching for us to experience the oneness that we have with one another, he was also teaching us that he's not a body, he is eternal. This is the whole point. We were studying this in the Awareness Academy last night when we were looking to the an advanced perspective on the teachings within the course. We were reading what Jesus gave us, told us that the crucifixion was not about death. The crucifixion was about the recognition that we are not bodies and we are free. So when we enter into a lesson and we come to it, lesson 133, and we're learning about how to value what ultimately has value, not to value what is valueless. When we come to it with a perspective that we learned in the text, that the crucifixion means we're not a body, then the whole point of the lesson is don't value what has to do with physical existence. Value what is eternal. Value that which is non-physical, because that is ultimately what goes on forever. The physicality is a temporary experience projected from a mind that wants to have the experience of separation. That doesn't make us sinful. God doesn't punish us for being adventurous children. There is actually no punishment from God whatsoever, no different than a loving parent is going to punish their child for creating mud pies and pretending to eat mud instead of getting food from the refrigerator. God is not going to punish that. When I was a little kid, actually, I don't even remember too much of when I was a little kid, other than we did make mud pies, but I have little grandchildren now. They are 5 and 2 years old. They're constantly pretending and playing with make-believe things. And sometimes now my 5-year-old grandson is at the stage where he's pretending to play, with his sword and his gun and the other little friends, and they are, killing each other because one's the dragon and the other one's the slayer, and they're pretending to kill each other. Well, their mom and me as their grandmother, their abuela, they call me abue, we don't punish them. We don't make them wrong for pretending to be killing one another. The Creator doesn't punish us for pretending that we're separate and having the experiences of killing each other's bodies, which is why Jesus did not condemn those who crucified him, because number one, he was not going to make the body real. Number two, he was not going to make each other separate. And number three, he was not going to lower his frequency and have hate in his heart, because that meant that he would have to close down the light that he is. He would have to darken himself. So he remains fully the light. They crucify the body that they are seeing because they're operating from separation. They're operating from the belief that one knows better than the other, that the Romans or the Jews at the time, the Pharisees, they knew what was better, so they were going to crucify this one person who wasn't following their rules and regulations. When you step back and you align yourself with knowledge, you let yourself receive the truth, especially such high frequency truths like what is in the Course in Miracles. This is not easy to digest for a mind that is still focused in separation, in material things, in valuing what is temporary, meaning valuing what is valueless. A mind that is focused on making the world real cannot fully grasp the teachings of the Course until you decide to become a little more open-minded. You begin to have, as the Course says, a little willingness to look at things differently. And that begins with recognizing that you are not a body. And then when you ask yourself the question, well, if I'm not a body, what the heck am I? Einstein told us that. E equals MC squared, your energy. What you are made of is energy. So we've got to take our consciousness from this finite belief that what we are is the atoms, the solid thing. And you collect all those atoms, and those atoms then create the physical body that we see, and that's who we are. That's all well and good. So we expand out into the macro aspect of things. But if you take your mind and you get curious about the micro and you bring it down, what is inside of those atoms? Scientists tell us that it's pretty much space. That space, that energy is what then, with the intelligence that we have, the intelligence that allows us to imagines a body. Well, then of course we have this physical body that we experience as separate people on this planet. But if you live from the exterior, you miss the whole point of what the Course is pointing to, which is to come into the interior, come within, come into to what is inside of those atoms that you think make up who you are. And in that space, you will find nothing. But that nothing is nothing as we know it in the world. It is no thing. And in that no thingness is everything that you could possibly ever imagine. That in that no thing is where God exists, because God is the essence of everything, but it is not a thing, which is, you got to get your head wrapped around that. It's one of those mental mind twisters that you've got to be pretty open-minded to allow yourself to experience what is it like to experience being nothing, no thing. When you break down that word, that's really what we are, no thing. When we decide to create a relationship with that no thing that we are, with the understanding that that no thing is in everything, it's the substance, it's the energy, it's the consciousness that permeates everything, we then begin to have a greater understanding of what ultimately has value. Because the Course wants us to experience this human existence with as much joy as we possibly can. It's as if, think about somebody drowning in the ocean. And it can feel really scary to be in the ocean, and you're floating and you see no land, nothing around you. But wouldn't it be wonderful if out of the sky drops a life raft, and you can get into the life raft, and at least you're held within the life raft while you're still in the middle of the ocean. That's what Jesus has given us. A Course in Miracles is a life raft. We're still going to be in the middle of the ocean, but at least we can experience ourselves held. When you can begin to accept what the Course is teaching you, now you'll still be in the middle of the ocean. We're going to be in the middle of this human experience in the 3D world. We're still going to have bodies. We're still going to see bodies. Our mind will still be thinking that we're separate from one another, and that's okay to think those things when internally you know the truth of who you are. Because when you know what you are, you experience that which is not true very differently. You activate a compassion for your brothers and sisters. You experience deep empathy as taught by the Course in Miracles, which means you recognize that we're doing things that might be hurtful to one another. We're doing things that are sometimes unkind, not compassionate, but you recognize that everybody is the same, no thing that comes from God, powerful, creative, and capable of creating their own existence. So you don't see people with pity as an, oh, poor person, look at what they're going through. You see them as the powerful, creative beings that they are, going through something that, yes, might feel challenging. When you understand what ultimately has value and you consciously choose to align with that, you experience the human journey with so much more peace in your heart. You actually get to navigate this world in that life raft, held by Jesus, held by God itself, because you allow yourself to receive the guidance that will help you navigate and get you back to the shore. And if you want to call the shore the place where you come to know God and you exist from that, well, welcome to A Course in Miracles. That's what it does, is it provides us the guidance that is necessary to allow us to enjoy this journey and move beyond this journey as we prepare for what is beyond this dream of separation. And we are in the middle of a time of massive shift. If you are one who has expanded your awareness and you've opened up to teachings from other beings, galactic beings, and you've opened your mind up to that there is way more beyond this planet. Why? Because God is infinite. There has to be more beyond what we have imagined. And you let yourself rest in the idea that we're not alone in this universe, that there are multiple universes, and that at some point we may start connecting with those beings from beyond this world. I mean, SpaceX just did an IPO, Elon Musk's company, creating rockets that are going to be going to outer space, that eventually are going to be going to other planets. Hello, we better open up to the idea that we're not alone, and that connecting with beings from other galaxies is probably a very good thing. It's no different than you live in a specific town going to visit another town. We do that here on the planet, and it's normal. We go on vacation to the beach, we go on vacation to the mountains, we explore different areas, we hop on a plane and we go to a different continent. Well, it's no different than hopping on a rocket and going to a different planet. That is coming because the technology is advancing to a state that we are seeing that we're connected with all that is. Now, the course does not really get into that kind of a conversation because the course is about coming within. It's about the micro. It's about coming into a place where you understand where everything comes from, where you understand where everything has its origin. But at the same time, the more you come into the micro, the more you understand that the macro is vast because it is infinite. So opening up to the idea that there are other beings that we're going to have, we're having disclosures. Most of the stuff that they're disclosing, I mean, I already knew a lot of that stuff because I've been studying a lot of that for a long time. I don't look for outside beings to save me. I look to outside beings because I have accepted that God is infinite and it has imagined all kinds of things, all kinds of different looking beings, because God didn't just imagine what we are familiar with. God has imagined everything because everything is possible when you operate inside of the realm of no thing. That energy then can create infinitely. I mean, your mind cannot limit what it can create. So as we get more comfortable with the micro, as we come inside and come to know who we truly are, the course will assist you in navigating what is happening on the macro. To be able to navigate this world, if we end up having contact with extraterrestrials or whatever we want to call UAPs, UFO, whatever names they want to come up with, those are all made up names. If you are comfortable with who you are, you're simply meeting aspects of yourself that have taken different shape, that maybe exist in different planets, because this is a vast universe. Consciousness is vast. From that place of knowing the micro, you will be able to experience love and joy and peace and excitement and fun and ease with anything that comes your way. But you have to be grounded in the truth of who you are. If on the outside we hear of stories of these, bad invaders, these mean reptilians or other from other galaxies or planets that want to hurt you, you would not be scared, because you would know that that which is created by God does not do anything other than extend love, unless it is thinking for itself and blocking that love from flowing. And then you wouldn't be afraid of anything that is doing something that is unloving. You would simply look at it just as Jesus looked at his persecutors and recognize them as brothers or sisters that are calling for love. Nothing would scare you, because you would know that you're the one who's bringing the peace of God. You're the one bringing the truth. You're the one armored with the peace that passes all understanding. So in lesson 133 last week, the first part of the lesson, I'm going to give us a real quick overview because we read through paragraph number 6. But that lesson 133 is called I Will Not Value What Is Valueless. And it tells us really, really clearly, this is a lesson about helping us bring everything down to its practical concerns. How do I apply this into everyday life? And the way that, which is how A Course in Miracles will benefit us, is if we know the practical application of it. And it tells us in paragraph number 2 that we don't ask for too much of life. In fact, it tells us we ask for far too little. The reason we ask for so little is because we don't know who we are. We are focused on the macro, on the physical, on the realm of stuff, on the realm of what can I accumulate, what can I acquire, what can I become. And because we're so focused on the outer, we have no understanding that within each and every one of us, we are creators like God who could create infinitely. But we don't focus on the creation of infinity or within infinity, because we're focused on the stuff. This is mine. I need one house. I need one thing. I need one partner. I need one whatever, one job. We're focused on the least amount of what we can possibly have. Yes, there are some people who move into greed and they want more. That's not what I'm talking about. Even that is limited because it's focused on power and money over others. It's not about infinite expression of that which is our birthright. So we focus on far too little, which is why when things begin to fall apart is when the course when we begin to get attracted to things like the Course in Miracles. When we lose the spouse, when we lose the house, when we lose the job, when we lose a child, when we get a diagnosis, that's when we start, it's like it creates a crack, which, think about it, it's necessary to get us to go within. When the outside cracks, then we've got no place else to go, usually, than within. So it goes on to tell us that in paragraph 2 at the very end, it tells us that, this course is not attempting to take from us what little we have become accustomed to, but it's telling us that there is no satisfaction in what we have become accustomed to, because it's of the world and it has ultimately little value to the being that we are in the within. It then goes on to tell us that this is a course that is helping us understand that we have a choice to make. And the choice that we're making is going to be between two things. Very simple. And this is one of, to me, the powerful parts about the course. In this particular lesson, it is narrowing everything down to a simple choice between two things. If you want to, if we're going to label it to simplify it, we're choosing between God or ego. We're choosing between truth or illusions. That means we're going to focus on the material that is what we see, or we're going to focus on the non-physical that gives shape to the material. If you're focusing on the non-physical, you have to accept that you are no thing. You are the no thing that is the same substance as everything. So your mind has to become very clearly focused on these two options, because when we understand the two options, then we recognize that there's only one choice. See, we're not being given two options so we can choose between the two. We're given two options through the teachings so that we can focus on choosing one, which is beautiful. It's not like a choice between chocolate cake and carrot cake. I love them both. I want them both. That's not what this choice is. This is a choice between liberation and suffering. Who in their right mind is going to pick suffering? Nobody in their right mind will pick suffering. There's only one choice, which is liberation, but humanity is not in their right mind. We are operating in the wrong mind. We're operating in the mind that has been conditioned to focus on the outer and has distracted us completely from what is within. That was the entire purpose of Emperor Constantine calling forth all of those bishops in the Council of Nicaea to select the documents that would convince us to live our lives in fear and guilt. And they did a great job. I mean, the Catholic guilt, it's rampant. But thankfully, the truth doesn't stay hidden forever because the truth is everywhere. So they have found other texts. There's been all kinds of discoveries. There's a couple of different teachers that I love following what they teach because they bring that scientific aspect to things, which my mind is somewhat scientific. But I've been able to move out of the just the scientific and move to the mystical. So I can blend the two pretty well. But scientifically speaking, we've got Greg Braden, who has done an incredible job of helping us understand that there's been discoveries of so many things that help us understand the truth of who we are if you need to have history about it from this world. If you're not prepared to go to the otherworldly, well, that information is already in this world that disputes what was given to us by the Catholic Church. So when you come to the place that you're willing to be open-minded and you understand what the Course is teaching you and you accept that there's only two choices, the truth or what is made up, which the Course calls illusion, then what the Course wants us to understand is what is the truth so we can choose just that. So in the last paragraph or the last two paragraphs we looked at last week, paragraphs 5 and 6, it is basically telling us that there is a law, that we must understand, that there is absolutely nothing we can do to change the law. The law is that what you pick creates your reality. If you pick the truth, you will create a reality based on truth. If you pick the illusion, you will have an experience that is based on what is not true. And that's what will create our suffering. So there's absolutely when you understand the law, you're not going to compromise. You're going to pick that which is going to lead you to the level of freedom that you want. Now, most people come to spiritual teachings because they've heard of the law of attraction. They want to attract the mate. They want to attract more money. They want to attract more stuff. That's the elementary part of spirituality. And it's a beautiful thing because it makes you believe that you deserve more. And you do. Remember, we've been used to too little. But when you begin to understand the implications of knowing what you are, that you are non-physical, the physical stuff ceases to matter. Interesting. The matter ceases to matter because you begin to understand that what you are is a creator You don't limit yourself by stuff that binds you, that holds you down, that you become tethered to. You begin to use your power, yes, to create, and there's nothing wrong with abundance and lots of things. But the consciousness that we are choosing the things that it is that we want to experience has to be cleaned up first. If it's a consciousness about what can I get, it's an ego consciousness because it is coming from greed. I got to get me all this stuff so that I can get to be okay because it's all about me. The consciousness that we're attempting to get to, which is what Jesus taught, you and the Father are one. Come to know who you are as one with God. We got to come into the micro. We got to come in all the way inside and connect with the essence of our beingness. That which is non-physical doesn't need anything. And from that place of accepting that you are already whole and complete, you don't need anything. A consciousness that is completely at peace within itself will only want, because we are invited in the course to ask, what do we want? But when you are wanting from a place that you are already complete, you're not looking for more stuff to accumulate to make you somebody. That stuff begins to serve the process of extension. How can we be in service to the rest of humanity that doesn't, excuse me, that doesn't remember who they are? That is when we begin to do what the Course tells us, recognize that the salvation of the world depends on us. We utilize all of the means that we would have in service of the brothers and sisters because we realize that we are all one. We're all connected. What I do for another, I do for myself. What I do for myself, I do for another. So we have to go through a process of purification. Our mindset, our consciousness, our identity has to be cleansed from egoic limitation to the unlimitedness of who we are as a Christ being, as one who is accepting that we are the one and only Son of God. When every one of us accepts that we are the one and only Son of God, and we come to the place of knowing our Father, Mother, Creator, from that place that we are its one child, not from the ego's perspective, oh, I'm the one child of God, I'm special. No, it's from the perspective that we are one because we're all one. We're all connected. There is one beingness, and we are each the consciousness that is awakening within each individual person, remembering our connection from that place. Anything that we want is going to serve the greater good. It's just an absolutely amazing thing. Think of a flower with many petals. When each petal realizes, wow, I'm the flower, now we don't have individual petals focusing just on themselves. We have the flower being cared for because each petal recognizes its importance within the whole. So, in the sixth paragraph, we need to understand that, and I'll read paragraph 6, and then we'll move into the remainder of this lesson. First, if you choose a thing that will not last forever, what you choose is valueless. This is why we have to understand what is it that we are that is eternal, and it is our non-physicalness. The essence that we are is what is eternal. The body can be killed. The body, will die. The body is a temporary vehicle. When it's time, it's done, it's done. But what we are within the body, what we are that animates the body, is what is eternal. That is what has value. So the mind has to be trained to look at things from two perspectives and recognize that what is temporary, what is of the ego, what is of physicality, does not have value, not ultimate value, even though we have been conditioned to value it, which is why we establish our net worth. And we think that our net worth matches our self-worth. That's how it is for most people. You value who you are as a person based on what you have. Well, that's ultimately valueless when you look at the macro picture. When you begin to value what you are as an eternal being that cannot be contained within your body, that eventually you got to drop the body so that you can move on and continue your magnificent eternal journey. Now we are beginning to connect with the truth of who we are. So then we go into paragraph number 7. Next, if you choose to take a thing away from someone else, you will have nothing left. This is because we are learning that we are not separate from one another. This is because when you deny his right to everything, you have denied your own. So the mind is being trained like those petals to recognize that we are the flower. When we each accept responsibility for being the flower, now all of the decisions that we're making are for the greater good. But we have all been conditioned to care about yourself and your family and your house and your stuff. That selfish mentality, we have to correct that. That is wrong thinking. That's why we're in our wrong mind. To get into our right mind is to cultivate that relationship with what connects all of us. Again, moving to that place where we get comfortable with quantum physics. There is so much going on here, not only in this planet, but in the whole galaxy. All of it is connected, but all of it operates from the same principle. Everything that God has created has the ability to have a thought that makes it think it is separate from God. That is possible, whether you're a reptilian, whether you're from Arcturian, it doesn't matter what you are, or a human. We can all decide to believe in oneness or in separation. Everybody has that ability to do that. And you will recognize that when you are fully trained into the truth of who you are, you can discern that which comes from love and that which comes from separation. All right, so sentence number 2 in paragraph 7 says, you therefore will not recognize the things you really have, denying they are there. Who seeks to take away has been deceived by the illusions loss can offer gain. Yet loss must offer loss and nothing more. We think that, oh, if I take it from that one, then I gained. This mentality of conquering, which has been rampant on this planet by one group from one country sailing and conquering the country of another being, taking from them their country, they think that that is a gain to them and a loss to, let's say, those indigenous people from that country. It's a loss to the one who takes it also, because we're hurting ourselves when we hurt another. We don't think about this when we are in separation, when we're in that mode of getting with that very small mindset of there's not enough and I got to get it so that I can get more. That mindset leads to greed, leads to a diminishment of the joy that we could all have when we all recognize that there is more than enough for all of us to experience. So we're correcting the mindset, the mentality of separation, of lack and limitation, which leads to the need for taking from others, which is part of what greed is all about. This is why, whether you are greedy, and you have a shack, let's say you're on the streets and you're greedy, this is my tent, or this is my blanket, or this is my what. It's no different than somebody who's a trillionaire and is greedy and wants more. It's the same level of thinking that says that there's not enough and I better protect mine. In paragraph number 8, it tells us the next consideration is the one on which the others rest. Why is the choice you make of value to you? What attracts your mind to it? What purpose does it serve? Here is the easiest of all to be deceived. For what the ego wants, it fails to recognize. It does not even tell the truth as it perceives it, for it needs to keep the halo which it uses to protect its goals from tarnish and from rust, that you may see how innocent it is. This is easy to see when we look at countries who attack others and and go on, and not even countries, we conquerors. We can look at, dictators who ravage a country, who come in with this idea, communism, this is good, or socialism, we're going to take care of everybody. And they're coming in innocently. We're going to take it all so we can equally divide it. And because we have enough history, if you look back, show me one conqueror who came in with this idea that we're going to take it from everybody and we're going to divide it and we're going to be equal. Everybody's going to have their fair share. We call that socialism, I guess, but it's really communism. And they shared it with everybody. Go ask the Venezuelans how that worked for them. Go ask the people in Cuba how that worked for them. Go ask anybody in any country who has experienced the conquering by communism or socialism with the promise that we're going to divide it for everybody. When the ego tells you that they're going to divide everything equally, run the other way. Why? Because the ego wants to stay innocent. Oh, I did my best, but it's been difficult. It takes a lot of money to run the country. It takes a lot of money to manage all of the things that I took from everybody else. That's why after I paid all the people that I needed to manage everything that we have and decide who gets what, well, there's not a whole lot left for you. Interesting how that works. The ego doesn't want to tarnish, doesn't want to see the tarnish, the rust on its halo. It wants to remain innocent, which is why it will never acknowledge that by taking from others with the lie that it's going to divide it up and share it with everybody else, it doesn't want to look at the deception in all of that. So this is why we have to individually wake up, have those experiences. If you talk to somebody who has experienced that, they will tell you that all of these stories of sharing, when they come from somebody who is conquering, they are not intended to really truly be a loving division of equal in an equal way. It is always going to be selfish and greedy because that is what the ego represents. A separation in individuation that makes itself the most important one. From that mindset, it's not interested in how it serves others, which is why we have to come inside. We've got to correct that misperception. We got to do the internal work to realize that I am not separate from God, therefore I'm not separate from anybody else. When we do that internal work and we purify our mind, we return to the truth of our oneness. We come back to the recognition that what we're made of is non-physical. It is no thing. But it is that no thing that is one with everything. That correction has to happen in your mind. When that happens in your mind, then it drops into the heart. Then you live from that place. This is why you have to give it to keep it. You have to extend that behavior. You have to treat others as if that is the truth for you to feel that truth within yourself. This is why this is a brilliant game. I mean, every time I think about God, I think about God. My God is the ultimate inventor of the game where you have to give it to keep it. You have to extend it to feel it. You have to share it to experience it. It's such a beautiful, beautiful game. But you can't have that experience until you understand the mechanics of the game. So in paragraph 9, it tells us, yet is its camouflage a thin veneer, which could deceive, but those who are content to be deceived. Powerful line. Those who are deceived by believing, oh yeah, the conqueror is going to take care of me. This is really good. All those people who line up and say, yeah, let's go for socialism or communism, or I'm all for taking it from others and dividing it. They want to be deceived. Because in that belief that another is going to take care of you by taking it from somebody else, we're participating in such a crazy lie, but we usually can't see it because the ego lies to us in telling us we deserve it by taking it from somebody else, versus that we deserve it because we are a child of God. And because we, as a child of God, are creators, we could create it. So instead of being a creator, we go into the mindset of being a conqueror, a taker. I get it from somebody else. This is why if you don't do the work to correct your mind, then you want to be deceived into having a mind that is easily corrupted by the lies that are being told. We're seeing this across the world. And right now, so many people, because we're in the time of awakening, we're in a window. And this is what's so beautiful when you begin to tap into the mind of God and you begin to see the bigger picture. This is what has become very clear to me. We are at a point where we are able to, those who are seeing truly, those who are valuing oneness, valuing the truth, are having the opportunity to shift into a timeline, meaning into a different aspect of the game where you're going to be playing with players who are operating at that same frequency, the frequency of knowing that we are one with each other, where love and collaboration and cooperation and co-creation are going to be the norm. So we are about to go through a timeline split, which is accelerating, and we're coming to the completion of that timeline. And you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Just as there are those kids from third grade who master third grade, they take their test, and some are going to move to fourth and some are going to repeat third grade. We are at that point. We're at the point of graduating and moving forward, or repeating the grade. Nothing wrong with repeating the grade. Why? Because those who want to be deceived want to be deceived. They don't want to move into another experience. They're happy and content with their experience. And how do you know that they're content with their experience? They're not open-minded to another way. That's our clue. Leave them alone. They don't want to change the game. They're happy playing that game. The only way somebody is going to shift timelines is because they want to. If they're telling you they don't believe in this and they don't want this and they're fighting against that, leave them alone. If you live your best life, if you live your happiest life, that becomes the greatest teacher, that then they can have that contrast to where they're at. If that inspires them, they'll come along. If it doesn't inspire them, they don't want to move on. It is absolutely perfectly okay. Why? Because God is not judging. And we're all safe in the mind of God. So there's nothing wrong that can possibly happen to anybody. These are amazing times if you are self-aware. If you open yourself up to understanding what is happening, then you will play this game with total and with the rules of the game at your disposal. But if you don't have the rules of the game, it's because you don't want the rules of the game, because you're playing it your way. And that is why we came, to play it our way. And then if you're open, then things like this make sense. Sentence number 2 in paragraph 9 says, its goals are obvious. You know, when we're being deceived, when we're operating from the ego, its goals are obvious to anyone who cares to look for them. Here is deception doubled. For the one who is deceived will not perceive that he has merely failed to gain. He will believe that he has served the ego's hidden goals. When you're attempting to take from others to feel like that makes you safer, you don't realize that the deception that is being played, because you're participating in a game of lack that says, I don't have enough, so I got to take it from them for me to be okay. Now we're deceived because now we're totally operating inside of delusion that is hard to get out of, because you dig yourself deeper, deeper, deeper into this idea that, you know, that you got to take from others to be okay. Paragraph 10 says, yet, though he tries to keep its halo clear within his vision, still must he perceive its tarnished edges and its rusted core. His ineffectual mistakes appear as sins to him. You start feeling guilty. Oh my gosh, when you start having time to look at what you did and you realize, oh my goodness, we can look at some cities inside of this country who are moving into those communistic beliefs. I mean, you look at Los Angeles, you look at New York, you're beginning to see what is going on there, these ideas of socialism and how it's better if we share. And then you begin to see, wait a second, the people who promised that they were going to take care of us are really taking care of themselves. Then you start getting guilty. You start looking within and you start feeling, oh, wait a second, what is going on here? And then, as it says here, his ineffectual mistakes appear as sins to him because he looks upon the tarnish of his own, the rust a sign of deep unworthiness within himself. He who would still preserve the eagle's goals and serve them as his own makes no mistakes according to the dictates of his guide. The ego is saying, no, we're doing the right thing here. This guidance teaches this guidance teaches it is error to believe that sins are but mistakes. For who would suffer for his sins if this were so? We have a lot of people who are deceiving and lying and cheating. We're seeing it. I mean, hello, look at the state of politics. So many who have gone in to serve others, but are really serving themselves. They don't think that they're making any mistakes. It's those who begin to wake up and realize, wow, I can't believe that I participated in that. As we begin to wake up and gain a conscience again, become conscious of what we did, that's when you begin to realize, whoa, oh my gosh, I was helping, I was contributing to the deceit that is hurting others. But the one who's still in it, they don't think that they're doing anything that is hurting others. They're convicted by their belief that they are right. Paragraph 11. And so we come to the criterion for choice that is the hardest to believe because its obviousness is overlaid with many levels of obscurity. If you feel any guilt about your choice, you have allowed the ego's goals to come between the real alternatives. The people who are beginning to wake up and realize, oh my gosh, what I did, that was not good. The person who feels guilt for murdering, the person who feels guilt for cheating on their spouse, the person who feels guilt for being in Congress or in the Senate or in politics, supposed to be serving, and they've been cheating. They've been corrupted by the lobbyists that pay them money to pass laws. The whole thing that is coming up with COVID right now, it is coming up into the conscious awareness of humanity. If you're willing to see, you will see that within the hallowed halls of government, there are meetings that are taking place that are exposing the corruption within the whole COVID scam. It was a scandemic. But those who have the eyes to see will see it. And then there are those who are beginning to feel the remorse, that feel bad that they didn't know better or that they didn't do better because they were afraid that if they didn't do the thing that they were told to do, they were going to lose their jobs. We're going to see a lot of humanity move to this place of exactly what it says here. If you feel any guilt about your choice, I chose to lie, I chose to deceive, you have allowed your ego's goals, the ego's goals for the valueless, my job, my money, my status, to come between the real alternatives. We made the goal of what can I get, what can I hold on to serve me, from the real alternative, which is what can I do in service to the greater good. This is where we have to get really clear. The choice between value and valueless comes to knowing who you are. If you accept that who you are is one with all that is, you will not make choices that are selfish. It is impossible. But you must train your mind to understand the difference between that which is selfish and that which is for the greater good. The next sentence, number 3, says, and thus you do not realize there are but two, and the alternative you think you chose seems fearful and too dangerous to be the nothingness it actually is. We need to prepare because the split in timelines that we're in are becoming glaringly obvious to those who can see the distinction between greed and grace. Those who operate from grace, they don't have to speak spiritual lingo. They don't have to be quoting A Course in Miracles. But everything that they do comes from a place of integrity and service to the greater good. That is how you can tell who has chosen a timeline, meaning to shift and play the game at a higher frequency, at a level of consciousness that is in service to the greater good. The Course in Miracles tells us the characteristics of a teacher of God. When you understand what honesty means that you are consistently thinking, speaking, and acting for the greater good. Then you can see the glaring difference. When you look at people who have been acting, thinking, doing things for themselves, for their own party, for their own community, for just only their family, for their club, when it is done for a selfish interest that says we deserve, but you don't, you're going to see those who are choosing to remain in a timeline that is of a lower frequency, meaning it is going to implode on its own, because when there is greed, there's the beautiful thing about the ego. The ego, the Course tells us, is interested in death. That is its main goal. But it doesn't think about my death. It thinks about the death of everybody else. How can I get? The infighting will always continue with the ego because somebody always has to win. On the other hand, when we live from our soul, from our spirit, it is never selfish. It is never about me. It is about how can we all prosper. So it extends the kingdom. Here it implodes the kingdom. And you can't really implode the kingdom because the kingdom is going to continue here, but it implodes their possibilities because of that selfish perspective that comes from not knowing that you're one with all that is. That it's just so clearly stated in this section. The next paragraph, 12. All things are valuable or valueless, worthy or not of being sought at all, entirely desirable or not worth the slightest effort to obtain. Choosing is easy just because of this. Complexity is nothing but a screen of smoke, which hides the very simple fact that no decision can be difficult. What is the gain to you in learning this? It is far more than merely letting you make choices easily and without pain. Heaven itself is reached with empty hands and open minds, which come with nothing to find everything and claim it as their own. When we accept that we are no thing, we come to know that we're made of the same substance as everything. Let me read that again. Heaven itself is reached with empty hands and open minds, which come with nothing to find everything and claim it as their own. We have to take a total and complete inventory of what it is that we have been valuing. If we value the external, we need to look at the fear that it generates when we think that we could possibly lose it. That is how you know you are attached to things. You have tethered yourself to that which is valueless. If, on the other hand, the house can come, the marriage can go, the job can change, and you are grounded in trusting a voice within that guides you, that says, you're going to be okay. People find this out all the time. They lose a job and then something better shows up a week or 3 weeks or maybe a year later, and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that job ended because this one is so much better. People who lose their home in a storm, in a hurricane, in a fire, in the moment they may go through the grief, but then they look back with perspective a year later and they go, that's the best thing that could ever have happened because we got to rebuild, we got to let go, we got to see what really has value, which is the family, which is the connection that we have, the caring, the love, that stays with us. People who lose a marriage, people who lose a spouse realize that they still go on. What goes on? That's what we are connecting to. And here's the beautiful thing about this shift in consciousness that we're in. In the way things have been, because we were all conditioned to believe in external things, we got the religion telling us to be afraid that we're insignificant, that we're not good enough, and we try to acquire and accumulate to prove that we are somebody. In the third dimension, we have to usually lose what we have to wake up. As we're shifting now in this fourth dimension of consciousness, moving into a 5D consciousness, in the fourth dimension, we're learning that we are okay even after we lose the stuff that we lose. What is possible now for those who are willing is you can literally give up the tethering. You can untether yourself from stuff by shifting your way of thinking. You don't have to lose anything. All that we're being asked to do is to loosen ourselves from the tether that something external can add to what we already are, when we already are all that is, when we are already everything. To get comfortable that there's nothing missing. If we can change our mind, we don't have to lose anything external. But if you are attached to that and your ego has you convinced that you need that to be okay, you may have to lose it to then give you the perspective a year later. Oh, look, I'm okay. So we can learn the hard way or the easy way. It's totally up to us. But most people, because of the conditioning, have to do it the hard way so they can have the contrast later on. Oh, wow, yes, I survived that situation. So it tells us very simply, heaven itself is reached with empty hands and open minds. You can open your mind, you're going to be fine. You can shift your perspective right now. You can shift to a different timeline right now. If your hands are full, holding on to what little you think you have, because as it told us in the beginning, we have settled for so little, then that little has to go so we can see that it's not who we are. Either way, heaven is reached with empty hands and open minds, which come with nothing to find everything and claim it for their own. We will attempt to reach this state today with self-deception laid aside and with an honest willingness to value but the truly valuable and the real. Our 2 extended practice periods of 15 minutes each begin with this. This is a state of mind. You've got to train your mind to think with truth. I will not value what is valueless, and only what has value do I seek. For only that do I desire to find. We got to train our mind to state that we only want what has ultimate value. And then we got to train ourselves to realize that if it's of this world, if it's physical, if it's something that has been conditioned, it does not have value to a soul. It truly does not. What has value to a soul, what is valuable, is the truth, number one. Knowing who you are as a child of God. You are within God. You are accompanied by God always and always will be. You are non-physical, meaning you're not a body. You are free. You are a creator. You can create anything that you want. So we are being loosened from the little that we have been accustomed to hold on to and open up to having a mind that will create whatever it is that we want. That law of attraction, when it's operating by one who lives in the truth of the greater good for all, the thoughts that you want to participate in are and to co-create are about a new medical system that is based on true health, a financial system that is based on trust and wealth, a education system that serves the greater good. The things that you want, you will be able to experience because you are in service to the greater good. Not everybody is going to be inspired to do those things. But if you're at the very least inspired to be free and to operate with truth, you are going to receive guidance on how to live your life in a way that is not attached to what has no value. It doesn't mean that you don't have a house. It doesn't mean that you don't have an income. It doesn't mean that you don't have a partner. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that with that, you're still free. You know that those things can come and go, and you are still free. What a gift. What a gift, because you have been determined to not value what is valueless and to only value what has value and only seek that. The last paragraph says, and then receive what waits for everyone who reaches unencumbered to the gate of heaven, which swings open as he comes. Should you begin to let yourself collect some needless burdens or believe you see some difficult decisions facing you, be quick to answer with the simple thought, I will not value what is valueless, for what is valuable belongs to me. When your freedom is more important than anything else, and it's not the freedom that is accorded by the United States, it's not the freedom that is accorded to you by, your family. It is the freedom given to you by God. And you recognize that you are in the mind of God. You are eternal because God created you that way. God thought you into existence. You will remain forevermore. The soul, the spirit that you are, the non-physical aspect of you will remain forevermore. When you align with wanting to know what that is, what that feels like, you will have reached the gates of heaven. Because heaven is not a place that we go to, like the Catholic Church told me that heaven is where I go after death, but then it told me I was a sinner and I was going to go to hell after I died. So it was like, talk about the ultimate bait and switch. I was told to be good so I could go to heaven, but then I was told that I was a sinner. Talk about psychotic. I mean, yeah, you can't win when you operate with that ridiculous lie. And we don't see that when we're in it, because the ego doesn't let you see that which is nonsensical until you begin to become committed to know the truth above all else. And when you commit to know the truth about all else, you realize that it's so simple. What we are is non-physical beings. There is no death to who we are, even though the body will perish. So why value the things that the body wants versus what the soul desires, which is to remember who we are so that we can collectively connect in service to the greater good. This is why love, joy, and peace are part of truth. Because when you are doing things in service for the greater good, there is joy in that. When you know you're all one, there is peace. Nobody's worried about who's going to cheat and take it from me. That's all parts of the lower realms of consciousness. Let the socialists have their game. Don't try to wake them up. If they don't want to wake up, it's not your job to wake anybody up, by the way. It is your job to awaken yourself and live from that state. But to live from that state, you have to know that you are worthy. That you are worthy because God created you. That means you need to love you. Love you more than love stuff. Love you more than love what people think of you. Love you by accepting who you are and then extending what you are out. That's why there is such joy and such happiness and such peace in living by truth. Your mind is clear, not corrupted, not filled with delusions. And now you do everything because you know you're doing it with joy because it's for the greater good. There's no agenda. Oh, I got to do this so I can get this. There's none of that. There's simply live your life to the fullest from joy, and it will extend the kingdom. Heaven is a state of mind achieved by one who has come to know that they are worthy. And inside of that worth, you feel that love that flows through you. That is what heaven is about. I look forward to meeting you there. Thank you. Till next time. I appreciate you guys being here. All right, everybody.